Hi friends, welcome. If this is your first time visiting, welcome. If you're returning, welcome back. Thank you so much for stopping in. And if you like the video, please give it a big thumbs up. So for today's video, I meant to put this up last night and I'm really sorry. My old dog was not doing very well last night. I was actually a little bit concerned that it was gonna be her day, but she woke up feeling spunky and good, so another day, so that's good. So anyways, I meant to put these up last night. I didn't, so here they are today. So I did these Inkjoy pens. This is the first time I did these using UV resin. And the process was actually like really fairly easy. These took a total of maybe an hour and a half to do all 6 of them. So that is definitely a pro. I did it with the UV resin because, you know, I've been working a ton and I don't have a lot of time to be going back and forth making pins. And I had a friend who really needed these for her kiddo. So she needs them for this weekend, so I'll give them to her today. Now, they are not perfect by any means. It's the first time doing UV resin, and there's some things that I will do different next time when if I use UV resin on these. And I think, you know, I like epoxy better for them. However, if I were in a hurry, UV resin is honestly okay. And I think also, like, if I were doing painted ones, like UV resin would be really good. So I am actually going to do some painted ones with UV resin and see how it is, because I think that you could make it so super thin and it would be really good. So I am planning on doing some. Okay, so first of all, when you're doing these, and I was in a hurry and I know better. If you have to use like a pair of pliers to put your little tops on or off, put a cloth around it before you do, because these tops are so thin that you get indents in them. So I do have indents in some of them where I had to use some pliers to like do the last bit of tightening up on them, and I didn't put a cloth around them. You know, I had a paper towel, but it just really wasn't, it was too thin. So just, you know, keep that in mind. And then the other thing, so I have personally gotten to where when I do these with epoxy, I've gotten to where I like to tape up the little rim on each end. And then, so I'll start like with the tape down a little bit further, and I just give it a little rim, like sometimes people do for tumblers, right? I give it a little rim, and then I go like a little further. So that way I'll bring my rim up a little further, so that way the epoxy comes up a little further. And then on the last one, I'll take the tape off and just do a super, you know, like thin around it. But that way, and I do that because I don't like this fat, bulky piece on this end and this end. And I found, you know, when I tape it, you know, even though you only have like a painted, or if you don't want to paint it, a non-painted pen, you know, on the little ends, like I just think that it's okay. And you don't have the bulky butts. You know, that's a personal preference. Some people like the bulky butts. I don't like them. So I think though that, so with the UV resin, because you put it in so quickly, I thought that it wouldn't give it the bulky butt, but it still really does like pull to those ends. You can see like I have like a little knot here where it pulled. So, you know, definitely knowing that. And I think though that also knowing that when you watch the video of me putting them together, you'll see what I'm talking about. But when I put it on the stick in there, I think that I will probably like give it a little twirl a couple times, and you wouldn't have to do it a lot because it does harden up so quickly, but I think that I would still like do a little twirl just to help keep it from, you know, having little knobby areas like this. But I do definitely think that I will tape up, you know, the ends to keep from having the bulky butt. Otherwise, like, it really honestly did a good job. And, you know, I did, you know, some chunky glitter over it, and the chunky glitter is down really well and it's smooth. Like I could have, you know, sanded these down if I had more time, but I think they're fine. But the nice thing is, like, it's still nice and smooth. I think they're not quite as shiny. Like things that I do with UV resin, I don't feel like it's quite as shiny as epoxy, but you only know that if you're like doing epoxy with it, you know what I mean? So, or not with it, but if you do epoxy, so you know the difference, you know, otherwise it looks, you know, just fine. So there's these. So honestly though, they really did, you know, they turned out just fine. I think that giving them a little spin and then also, you know, taping off the edges to not have the bulky butt would probably, you know, that would probably be like the biggest things. And also because my time is so limited, you know, I was a little thick with my UV resin, where I think that honestly, especially if I was doing like a pen at a time, I think that I would go thinner more times because you're just putting it under the UV light. It doesn't take that long. And I was in a hurry and I was, you know, doing 6 of them. So I did go thick on the UV resin. I would go like just thin on the UV resin and then put them under. And I was also thinking like just the UV resin, even if you were doing epoxy, like just as you were getting your base set, doing the UV resin, and then just doing a super light last coat of epoxy, like that would work also, you know? And then, so when you're seeing the video of these put together, I've done a video where I make my own little spinner contraption for the pins, and it works really well. However, I did at one time, I found this little laser cut wood one from Glitter Chimp, purchased it, never used it, and I thought I would use it for this one. And I think they still have them. So it is a really good idea. Like the concept of it is really good, but a piece of it broke like within 1 minute and it kept falling apart. However, once I got like fed up with it and put some UV resin on the pieces to keep them in place, then it was marvelous. So I can honestly see like using it on a turner and it being absolutely marvelous, but you would want to either UV resin or epoxy your pieces together first, because otherwise it falls apart. So just know that. But it's a really good concept, and I think if you just, you know, put it together like that, then it's good. So anyways, all in all, I really do like how this turned out, especially, you know, first time doing them and being in such a hurry to get them done. So yeah, I like it. I will definitely, you know, try this UV resin on the pens again. I think I'll probably do some painted ones with just UV resin. Anyways, if you'd like to see me put these together, just stay tuned and the video will follow. And I hope you guys have a blessed and beautiful rest of the day, friends. And I'll see you later. Bye. All right, so for these pens, I use the Ink Joy pens, and these are a set of colored ones. So I'm gonna do 6 of them, and they're each gonna be glittered the color of the pen. So I'm not gonna go through and show you each one being done for the sake of time. So I'm just gonna do a couple of them on camera. So I take the pens and I clip off the little clip on there. And then I do take some sandpaper and go over them with sandpaper, clean them with alcohol. And then I'm taking my glitter colors that I'm going to use for these, put them in a little cup, and then I will add my UV resin to it. And then set the UV resin off to the side. You don't want it to be near your light, otherwise it will harden. So put as much in there as you need. I'm going to mix it up really good. And then I use wooden skewers to put my pens on. And I'm going to put the glitter and resin on just with a gloved finger. That just really I tried using a brush, and a gloved finger just really worked the best. So I just put them on the ends of my little wooden dowel rods or skewers, whatever. They're actually dowel rods. Skewers are thinner. And then I'm just going to take my gloved finger and I put the resin and the glitter mixture over it. So each of these pens got 2 layers of the glitter and resin mixture. And after each layer, they went under the light for 4 minutes. So I made the glitter mixture thick for the first layer. And then on the second layer, I did add a little bit more resin to it and then made it a little bit thinner so that it was a smoother layer for the second one. And then they each, again, they just went under the light for 4 minutes. Now, in the background there, you can see that is the pen holder I was talking about. And, I just sort of played with it throughout to figure out how I would use it to best hold it up. So whatever it is that you're using, you can figure it out. In the end, what I realized, I used my X-Acto, my Cricut X-Acto knife, and sort of laid it underneath so that the dowel rods rested on it. And you'll see this a little later. And it just lifted them up just enough and it allowed them to be under the light perfectly. So you just sort of play around with what you have. So these get their glitter, they go under the light, and this UV resin, like I said, is 4 minutes. So here I just sort of held it at first until it wasn't sticky anymore. Then I put it on the rods. So you could see where that was sort of like falling apart on me. This is before I did the resin to put it together. Once I put some resin on it and kept it together, it was definitely much easier. But this is what I was talking about. So that's the piece that broke. So as you can see, the concept is really good, and there's little holes there where it would go on your spinner if you're doing epoxy. And then I got it fixed and got it underneath the light. So I just sort of played around with it in a couple different ways to see what worked for me. And then after these all had this first layer on, I just sort of laid them out and I put the light back over them for 4 minutes. So after that, I put them back on my little rod, and each of them got just a little light coat of chunky glitter. So I just put a little bit of chunky glitter and put my UV resin in it, mixed it up, and it's just thin to where it just gives some color, but it doesn't like cover it. So, and then after I did that, I just put them under again for 4 minutes. And then when they were done and they came out, then I took them off and I used a gloved finger and I put a nice thick coat of just plain UV resin on them to give them the finish, and then put them back under for 4 minutes. After each one had set under the light for 4 minutes after having the plain UV resin put on them, then I did line them up on this foil and put them under the light for 8 minutes. I use the foil because that allows the light to transfer up and them to cure a little bit better. And then after that, I just take all of my pieces and put them back in. And these are easy to figure out which goes into which because I did make the pen the color of the ink for each of these. So the yellow pen is yellow ink, blue is blue ink, etc. And I just put them all back together. Super easy. Now I did on a couple of them, I had to use like my pliers to tighten them at the end. And that's where I really should have put a cloth in there because the top pieces of them are so soft. It's easy to get like lines and stuff in them if you don't, put something between it. And then also that's where putting the tape around the edges and not letting it get up thick around there makes it very easy. But for the first time using UV resin and being in such a hurry, I feel like they came out, nice. They definitely are not perfect. And, I learned a few things that I will do differently the next time I do them with UV resin. But all in all, I do believe it is a good way to get your pins done quickly if you need to. And I liked it. It was good. So honestly, about an hour and a half for the entire thing. Not too bad. I hope you guys have a blessed and beautiful day, and I hope this was helpful.